My sister thought I was asleep. That's the part that still makes me laugh. She waited until the lights were off, until the house was quiet, until the silence stretched just long enough to convince herself I was out cold. Then she crept into my bedroom. She thought I wouldn't hear the soft creak of the floorboard by my dresser. She thought I hadn't noticed her strange questions, her fake concern, her sudden interest in the safe I never told her about. But I had. And when she pulled open that drawer, expecting to find the key, what she saw stopped her cold. She'll never forget it. Because in that moment, covered in glitter and lies, she realized something terrifying. I wasn't the naive big sister, she remembered. And this time, she had picked the wrong person to betray. It started with a phone call at 7:03 p.m. on a Wednesday, the kind of precise moment that lodges itself into your memory, like a splinter. "Sis, can I stay with you for a little while?" Brooke's voice was softer than usual, almost childlike. I hadn't heard that tone since we were kids sneaking back into the house after curfew. She didn't give many details. Said her lease was up, her job had ended, and she just needed a few weeks to figure things out. She talked fast, like if she slowed down, I'd have time to say no. I didn't say no. Despite everything, the years of distance, the dramatic exits, the financial chaos she left behind every time she disappeared from my life, I still remembered the little girl who shared my bunk bed, who cried when I scraped my knee, who used to braid my hair while humming off key. So, I said yes. 2 days later, she arrived in an Uber, dragging 2 oversized suitcases and an emotional hurricane behind her. Her hair was freshly highlighted, her nails immaculately done, and her phone buzzed constantly with notifications she kept swiping away. "This place is still exactly the same," she said, stepping into my front hallway and spinning slowly, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. "It smells like eucalyptus and money." She meant it as a joke, but the words landed wrong. Like everything else Brooke said, it balanced perfectly between charm and condescension. I had already cleared out the guest bedroom. Clean sheets, fresh towels, a little welcome basket with mini toiletries I'd picked up from work trips. It was something I did out of habit, make people feel safe, taken care of. I didn't realize until later that people like Brooke read kindness as vulnerability. The first few days were fine, almost pleasant. We had wine on the porch, caught up on family gossip. She complimented my throw pillows, my French press, the calm vibe of the house. But she never unpacked. She kept one suitcase half-zipped near the door, ready. By the end of the week, the questions began. "Do you keep cash in the house?" she asked while loading the dishwasher, as casually as someone asking if I liked oat milk. "What happens if you, forget the combination to your safe? I saw a locksmith van outside the other day. You ever worry someone might break in?" Each time, I brushed it off, but my gut tightened a little more with every conversation. She wasn't curious. She was calculating. And when I came home one afternoon to find her sitting on my bedroom floor claiming she was just looking for nail clippers, I knew something was wrong. Brooke wasn't here to find herself. She was here to find something valuable. And I had just begun to realize how dangerous it was to let family back in without checking what they'd brought with them. The questions didn't stop. They just got more creative. "How much is this place worth now?" Brooke asked one morning over coffee, swirling her spoon in the mug I'd owned since grad school. "I saw a Zillow post for a house down the block, 1.2 mil. You could probably sell this for more." I shrugged. "I'm not selling." "Still," she grinned. "Nice to know you're sitting on a gold mine." That same afternoon, I caught her lingering in the hallway near my office door, which I always kept shut. "Just admiring the paint color," she said quickly. "What is that, sage mist?" It wasn't. It was called Storm Distance, and I picked it because it reminded me of calm just before something breaks. By the end of her second week, I had a running tally in my head. 5 casual comments about money. 3 accidental door openings. 2 fake errands that ended with her returning from nowhere in particular. 1 unforgettable moment when she asked, deadpan, "If someone died suddenly, How would the next of kin get into the safe? That one stopped me mid-chew. She laughed immediately. Relax. It's just a hypothetical. I've been watching those crime documentaries. But I'd worked too long in insurance audits to dismiss hypotheticals. In my world, they were red flags with glitter on top. And then she asked the question that told me everything I needed to know. Hey, she said casually while scrolling through Instagram. Where do you keep that little brass key you used to have on your keychain? The one with the crown logo? Remember that? I froze. That key wasn't on my keychain anymore. I hadn't used it in years, but I knew exactly where it was. Tucked into a velvet pouch, hidden in the back of my dresser, taped under a false bottom in the drawer. I hadn't told anyone about it. Not even Brooke. Not even when we were close. So how did she know? I nodded slowly. Haven't seen it in ages, I lied. She smiled, her eyes still glued to the screen. Weird. I swear I saw it in your room a few days ago. Must have been imagining it. She wasn't imagining anything. She'd been snooping. I spent the rest of that night walking through my own home like it was enemy territory, checking drawers, checking closets, checking for footprints that didn't belong. I didn't find anything out of place, not yet, but I felt something shift. The air in my house had changed. The walls felt thinner. My breath felt heavier. It was the feeling of being watched, not by a stranger, but by someone who once called me sissy. That was when I stopped asking myself if Brooke would do something, and started preparing for when she would. I wasn't sleeping much anymore. Each night, I lay in bed listening for creaks, for movement, for anything that didn't belong. And on a Tuesday night, just after 12:40 a.m., I heard it. My bedroom vent carries sound, an old architectural flaw that had never mattered until now. That night, it carried a voice. Brooke's. She was downstairs, pacing softly across the hardwood floor. I could tell by the rhythm of her steps and the faint tap of her nail extensions against her phone. Then came the whisper, just loud enough, just clear enough. Yeah, she's got a safe. I saw the folder with the will and those bank slips. I sat up slowly in bed, heart pounding. She paused. No, she has no idea. She's either asleep or pretending not to care. I'll get the key tomorrow night when she's at yoga. I wasn't going to yoga tomorrow night. I reached for my phone, turned off airplane mode, and opened the voice memo app. I hit record. Brooke kept talking. I saw her tap the back of the drawer when she opened it. I think it's taped under there or something. I'll double check. But once I have that key, it's game over. There's gotta be cash, documents, jewelry. Worst case, I can sell info. Sell info? I felt a chill rise through me like a wave. Not just betrayal. Premeditated, organized, sold-for-profit betrayal. The person she was speaking to didn't say much, just occasional mms or keep it quiet. I recognized the voice though, Travis. Her on again, off again, ex, the one who'd once stolen our mom's credit card and blamed it on a hacker. Give me one more day, she whispered. I'll have everything we need. Then silence. I ended the recording and slipped the phone under my pillow. I didn't move for 5 full minutes, just listened to the familiar creaks of my sister walking back upstairs, moving past my door, pausing just for a second outside my room. I kept my breathing steady, like I was asleep. The floorboard shifted. Then she walked away. I stared up at the ceiling fan, my fingers clenched around the edge of the blanket. There was no more doubt. Brooke wasn't looking for help. She was casing the house like it was a job. She saw me as an opportunity, a mark, a soft-hearted big sister with something she could steal and sell and vanish with. But she'd made one mistake. She thought I was just a desk worker with a savings account. She didn't know that half my job used to be investigating people exactly like her, people who thought they were clever, careful, invisible. People who never imagined the person they were targeting had already hit record. Tomorrow, she would look for the key. But I'd be waiting with something much better. By sunrise, the plan was forming faster than the coffee dripping into my mug. I didn't want revenge. I wanted proof. Undeniable, glittering, unforgettable proof. If Brooke wanted to play dirty, she was going to learn just how clean my traps could be. First, the key. At 5:15 a.m., before Brooke woke up, I removed the brass key from its hiding spot, carefully peeling back the tape under the drawer's false bottom. I placed it in a new location, the back of my kitchen junk drawer, underneath a tangle of rubber bands and expired coupons. A place so boring, so mundane, she'd never think to look there. Second, the bait. I created a dummy key, an old suitcase key that looked just similar enough to pass under dim light. I taped it in the exact spot the real one had been. Third, the surprise. That afternoon, while Brooke was out for a walk, which I highly suspected was code for scoping out my neighbor's security cameras, I drove to a party supply store 3 towns over. The clerk, a teenager with pink hair and zero judgment, helped me pick out a small confetti cannon and a jar of ultra-fine glitter, the kind used for crafts that never quite leaves your skin. I smiled when she rang it up. "Birthday party?" she asked. "Something like that," I said. Back home, I got to work. I hollowed out the confetti cannon, replacing the paper bits with a cocktail of silver and gold glitter. I adjusted the spring mechanism to trigger with just enough pressure, specifically, the pressure of someone reaching for the back of my drawer. Installation took precision. I nested the trap inside the second drawer of my dresser, the same drawer Brooke had already snooped in. I set the trigger just past the dummy key. Then I tested it with a wooden spoon. Boom. A glorious burst of glitter rained down like a disco storm. It sparkled in the air, on my carpet, on my shirt. I laughed, then spent 20 minutes vacuuming, satisfied. It worked. Finally, I set up the camera, a compact motion-activated one I'd had since a work trip. I positioned it between 2 books on my nightstand, angled perfectly toward the dresser, hidden in plain sight. It would catch everything. Her entrance, her snooping, the glitter explosion, and hopefully, her face when she realized she'd been caught. By the time Brooke came home, humming and acting like she hadn't just plotted a heist, everything was back in place. She had no idea that the room she was about to rob had been transformed into a crime scene waiting for a headline. And I had no intention of sleeping through it. The house was dark, still, silent. Except, I wasn't sleeping. I lay in bed fully clothed beneath the covers, phone screen dimmed, eyes fixed on the vent that ran sound from the hallway. My heart beat steadily, my breath even practiced, measured. I'd done surveillance work before, though never in my own home, and never on someone who once shared my last name. 7 a.m. The floorboard creaked outside my door just once. Enough. She was here. The camera app on my phone blinked to life. The motion sensor had triggered. I watched the grainy night vision feed, my bedroom door opening slowly, soundlessly, just a few inches. Brooke's silhouette emerged, wrapped in shadows, cautious and quiet like a cat that's done this before. She paused in the doorway. I could almost hear her thoughts. Is she awake? Did she take a pill? Did she move the key? She stepped inside. My pulse slowed. Not from calm, from focus. Brooke moved with purpose. She didn't even glance at my bed. She went straight for the dresser, opened the top drawer. Then the second. Her body blocked most of the view, but I saw her posture shift, her right hand reaching toward the back. I held my breath. Click. Boom. The glitter cannon exploded with a burst that echoed like a sneeze from the universe. Silver and gold erupted in a shimmering mushroom cloud, coating her in light-reflecting chaos. Her scream was half-choked, half-feral, like a raccoon caught in a trap. I shot up in bed with practiced confusion. Brooke? What the hell? The lights came on. And there she was. Glitter clung to her eyelashes, stuck to her lips, embedded in her scalp, like 1,000 tiny stars. Her pajamas, black silk, of course, were now a disco ball of humiliation. She stood frozen beside my open drawer, holding the dummy key like it might still save her. Sis, too, thought I heard a noise, she stammered. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, squinting like someone who'd just been yanked from ambient sleep. A noise? In my dresser? She blinked rapidly, glitter flying from her lashes like weaponized confetti. Two thought someone was breaking in. I saw the door open. I raised an eyebrow. And your first instinct was to open my drawer at 2 a.m.? She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. It's not what it looks like. Oh good, I said, standing. Because what it looks like is you breaking into my room to steal from me. I wouldn't. I was just. She took a step back, glitter puffing off her like fairy dust every time she moved. Just what, Brooke? I stepped closer now, calmer than I expected. Looking for aspirin? More throw pillows to admire? Maybe a spare will and power of attorney while you're at it? Her eyes narrowed. You set me up. Yes, I said plainly. I did. And I picked up my phone from the nightstand, but I'm not the one who made a midnight phone call about robbing my own sister. Brooke's mouth dropped open. You recorded me? She hissed. I pulled up the voice memo. Her voice spilled into the room in haunting stereo. She has no idea what's coming. I'll grab the key tomorrow night. We can sell the documents if nothing else. Brooke shook her head like she could unhear it. You don't understand, Sienna. I was desperate. Travis is in trouble. I owe people, real people, money. You owe people? I repeated. So your solution was to rob me? Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't reach her voice. You have everything. I have nothing. I have everything because I worked for it, I snapped. Because I stayed when you ran. Because I paid the bills when you disappeared. Because I grew up while you kept playing pretend. She flinched. Just slightly. Brooke, I said quietly. You didn't just try to steal my money. You tried to turn my home, my peace, into a payday. The silence stretched between us. And then her face hardened. I didn't think you'd fight back, she said bitterly. I nodded. That's your mistake. You thought I was still the same sister who'd cover for you. She glanced down at herself, covered in gold and silver, humiliated, cornered. I'm leaving, she muttered, stepping past me. Leave the key on the counter, I said softly. She turned, eyes gleaming. I hope it was worth it, making a show out of your own sister. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, it wasn't a show. It was a mirror. And she finally saw herself. The front door slammed harder than it needed to. The silence that followed was thick, not peaceful, but stunned. The kind of silence that settles after a bomb goes off, once all the glitter has landed and your ears are still ringing from what you thought was family. I didn't move right away. I stood in the hallway, watching the trail Brooke had left behind, not just the specks of gold on the floor or the scuff marks on the baseboard, but the deeper, quieter marks, the kind you can't vacuum away. She didn't even take her suitcase. The dummy key still sat in the drawer, slightly bent from the force of her grip. I closed the drawer gently and turned off the overhead light. The camera light blinked red, signaling the recording had ended. I reached over, shut it off, and slid it back into its velvet case like a surgeon finishing a clean operation. Downstairs, I poured myself a glass of water, hands steadier than they should have been. The adrenaline had passed. Now came something else, grief, maybe. Or the realization that I hadn't just set a trap for my sister. I'd confirmed who she really was. And worse, I'd been right to. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, listening for the sound of her car, or the inevitable text, or maybe even a final insult thrown from the driveway. But nothing came. Instead, around 3:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. A single message lit up the screen. Brooke, you always thought you were better than me. You finally proved it. I stared at the words for a full minute before deleting the message. It wasn't about being better. It was about not being blind anymore. By sunrise, her suitcase was gone. I never heard the front door open. Never saw the car. But it was gone. Along with the last pieces of the version of Brooke I used to love. Later that morning, I found myself standing at the dresser again, not opening it, just staring at it, The glitter still clung to the rug around its base like snow that refused to melt. I considered vacuuming it all up, but something stopped me. I left one patch just a shimmer near the leg of the dresser untouched. A reminder. Not of the betrayal, but of the moment I chose to stop making excuses for people who weaponize your kindness. Of the moment I realized that love doesn't mean sacrifice when all it buys you is silence, secrets, and a drawer full of lies. That day, I changed the locks. Not out of fear. Out of freedom. The first weekend after Brooke left, I kept expecting her to come back. I'd imagined the sound of tires in the driveway, her knock light but urgent followed by the familiar voice. Sienna, can we just talk? But it never came. Instead, I got a voicemail from our Aunt Valerie. Brooke says you kicked her out in the middle of the night, that you set her up and humiliated her. What's going on? I didn't return the call. Because if Brooke was still spinning stories, that meant she was still trying to control the narrative, which meant she hadn't learned a thing. I wasn't interested in correcting lies anymore. I was interested in enforcing boundaries. And that, I was learning, had a cost. It's strange no one talks about the grief that comes from protecting yourself. We talk about healing, closure, cutting off toxicity. But we don't talk about the dull ache that lingers when you do the right thing, and it still hurts like hell. I'd always believed consequences were for strangers, for people who hurt other people, not for someone who once held my hand at our mother's funeral, not for the sister who used to braid my hair before school. But the truth is, family doesn't cancel consequence. It doesn't grant immunity from accountability. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Brooke. Just one line. I left my favorite boots in your guest room. I stared at the screen, then typed. They're in the front closet. Come get them during the day. I won't be home. No smiley face, no warmth, no invitation for conversation, just logistics. She picked them up the next afternoon. Quietly. She didn't knock. She didn't leave a note. But the boots were gone. That was the last I saw of her. Sometimes at night, I still think about what would have happened if I hadn't set that trap. If she had found the real key. If I had woken up to an empty safe and no proof, no footage, no voice recording, just the unbearable realization that someone I loved had gutted my trust and left me with nothing but confusion. Would she have confessed? Lied? Left a sticky note saying, sorry? Or would she have looked me in the eye over breakfast and pretended like everything was fine? I try not to dwell on that too much. Because in the end, I didn't lose money. I didn't lose property. I lost a version of my sister I had invented, the version I kept clinging to long after she stopped being real. And when the lies glittered on her skin under the bedroom light, I finally saw the truth. Sometimes, love means giving someone every opportunity to do right. And when they don't, it means letting them face the consequences alone. 3 months later, the house finally felt quiet in the right way. No more checking the locks twice. No more vent listening. No more wondering if the questions at dinner hid something sharp underneath. Just silence. Honest silence. I'd rearranged the guest room not because I needed to erase Brooke, but because I needed to reclaim the space. New curtains, fresh bedding, a small potted plant that didn't care who had slept there before. One Saturday morning, I opened the front door and found a small envelope on the mat. No postage, just my name in Brooke's handwriting. Inside, a short note. I messed up. I know I can't take it back. I hope one day you'll remember more than just the glitter. B. I stood there for a long time, holding the note in both hands. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't justifying anything. She wasn't even asking to come back. It wasn't a plea. It was a mirror, finally held up to herself. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I simply tucked the note into a drawer, not the one with the glitter trap, but a quiet one near the kitchen, with old photos and faded postcards. A drawer reserved for things that mattered once, and might matter again someday. Not today, but someday. These days, I wake up early and brew coffee without looking over my shoulder. I go to work, I read by the window, I laugh louder, I sleep harder. And every now and then, when sunlight hits just right, I catch a faint sparkle of glitter embedded deep in the rug by my dresser. I could clean it up. I've tried. But part of me is glad it's still there. Not as a stain, but as a signature, proof that I saw it coming. Proof that I didn't let it destroy me. Justice doesn't always come wrapped in court cases or apologies. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in clear boundaries, in one less key being handed out, and sometimes justice sparkles.